Hey y'all, hey, it's a new episode of Bonafide, her podcast featuring Dylan Gonzalez.
Hey, we in this thing.
Yes, girl, it's been so long since we did the last one, like from the previous one. But girl, I had to make sure you come through for my podcast because I was like, I loved your story. I love how inspiring you are. And you just a jewel like a gem
Thank
that
you.
is so powerful.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thanks for having me. I'm super grateful for the time, the energy, the love, the effort, the support. So I just do my best to try to show that back and reciprocate that energy.
Yes, man. Thank you. Girl, energy is everything. So,
Okay, it really is. Like I don't think that people really understand like the power of our energy and in every little detail of the aspects of our life and how powerful it is. There's one thing I know for certain, it's that energy don't lie. So I just like to make sure that I keep a certain energy around me. I have a standard of people, of communities, of environments, of hobbies. I have a standard, a precedent that I keep set and that I don't allow myself or anybody around me. I hold the people around me, I hold the any entities around me accountable for meeting me at my standard. And if they can't meet me at my standard, then that must mean they have a standard above mine and I'm ready for the challenge because I ain't dropping the bar.
that part, that part. So,
That's hard to do though. I'm gonna tell you right now. I don't know if I've met anybody yet who has a standard above mine.
right, right. You just
I
got to let
just
them know you one of one. That's all. You got to let them know.
Okay, you fucking with the right one. Number
Right.
numero uno uno. Okay, numero uno uno. That's me. I am the right one. I
Right.
really am. Like, look, I think that these days a lot of people are so curious, especially since the last time we talked, and a lot of the gems that I dropped, a lot of the projects and initiatives that I started and like where they're at today. And I'm really just getting back into the process. I even call this kind of like the pregame because we really haven't even hit game time yet. We're like just really getting started. We're just getting back into the like getting outside, getting into our boot camps, getting into the professional elite conditioning on every level with the mind, the body, the spirit, because it all translates socially, financially, emotionally, physically, every single aspect, like I was mentioning. So right now, it's like just that space. Like I'm really only doing interviews, even with people that, again, I'm connected with, that are in my community, that have shown me love, that have a certain level of this loyalty and respect to just what it is that we have as a shared vision overall and want to uphold that. So for me, this is like a really special time to get to just disclose all these things, to get to answer whatever questions that you have for me and that you're curious about and get the ball rolling.
Yes. I feel very honored, girl. Girl, I feel very. I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna do my little cry moment after the podcast because I was like, yes. But so my question is, my first question I always ask my guests is, how did you get to where you are in your journey right now? Like your sports story to how it transitioned to where you are right now.
All right. There's like two ways I want to answer that question because there's two different roads that I feel like I need to acknowledge and to highlight. One road is the road that people see and create their own perspective and perception around. And the other road is the one that people don't see. The other road is the road that is a majority of what's actually going on and what's actually taking place. And that's more egregious than what the picture perfect image of something might project or might indicate or give the impression of. On one side of things, when we're talking about the side that people see, how did I get there? How did I get to this space in my career, in my brand, in my platform? I would say that just came ultimately with relationship building, like making sure that I, again, that energy, like understood the people I was around, understood what people I wanted around or needed to go, understanding who I aligned with, who was really going to be like family to me, who wasn't, and how they were ultimately going to help inspire me in whatever way that was. And I always hope that I can give that same energy back. Like I'm not a taker, I'm a giver, but I'm a student, and I'm always going to be a student first. So when it comes to anybody that I encounter, regardless of whatever socioeconomic status they may fall in, I intend on learning something from you. I intend on being educated. So when it comes to the people I've connected with and that have helped me either just remind me of who the hell I am, or push me and connect me by giving me different opportunities to collaborate with them, or do these monumental things in the culture and in the world. And I've just made sure that, again, I upheld that standard of what it is they can expect from me. And I wanted to make sure I always over delivered. So that was the other thing. I was always over delivering. I was always doing overtime. And there's a balance you have to find with the labor that comes with it, because you don't want to burn yourself out. But you do have to be willing to go that extra mile, to over deliver on the things that you ultimately set out to do with people, because that's going to be what helps you stand out. That's going to be what creates that strong dynamic and foundation between the two of you, or three of you, or whatever the case may be. But in my case scenario, it was like really establishing who is Dylan, and finding myself and highlighting that authentically, and making sure that I just continue to stay true to that, and to outgrow whatever it is I needed to outgrow, and expand in whatever areas that I needed to expand. And I just stayed committed to the vision. I never let up on the vision, and I never stopped believing in it. And that's kind of what takes me to that other side of the work. There's a level of commitment that comes with that belief. And on both sides of the fence, you have to be willing to commit. You have to be willing to show up. You have to be willing to push yourself and hold yourself accountable, as well as those connected to you. And on that tougher grind, I have been met with so much BS. Like so much BS. I mean, it's not just me, but I'm just speaking from my personal testimony, because I can't speak for anybody else. But I know that there are so many people who can relate to me, just because of my network and the people that I'm within, and the stories that I've had the honor of having disclosed to me, and the things that I've simply just witnessed and studied. And when it comes down to it, I am an anomaly in the culture when it comes to ultimately what I have done in the culture, which was create an entire new era. Like, a lot of people don't really understand, even though they know who I am and they might consider themselves like my greatest fans and all this stuff, they don't understand the experience of what actually came with that, the hardships, the hate, the closed doors, the blacklisting, the discrimination, the prejudice, the ugly, ugly, ugly sides of things that you get faced with on that dark side of stuff, the mental health things, the emotional health things, the sabotage from others, from your own self. Like, there are so many hurdles that ultimately, when you're set up for greatness, or when you're set up to do something that has never been done before, you're going to be met with, and you're going to be challenged with. And again, having the right people around you, the communities to support you, to have your back, to remind you like, hey, you got this, you can do it, is imperative. And for you to continue to reinstill that within your own self. And that can really only be done when you do the work. And the work is going to look a little bit different on everybody. It really comes down to, what are you trying to get out of life? What are you trying to show up and do? What are you purposed in? How are you trying to contribute to the world? It's going to look a little different on everybody. But there are certain things that I would consider like a fundamental baseline or foundation that everybody needs to do a little bit of every day if they want to be in their best, fullest, most whole, divine humanity. Like if they want their best human experience, if they ultimately want to achieve what I would consider their greatest potential, there are certain things that we need to do a little bit every day to nurture certain relationships within our own self, and again, that are extended beyond us. And I think that it's unclear what some of that is. That's why I had to go on that journey to explore, like, what are the details? And I've come to find that it's all very simple in theory and in concept, but the work itself is not easy. It is very challenging. And it's mostly because I think we live in a time today where we want instant gratification. We want information to register and process right away. And we just think that that's enough. Like we think that like seeing or reading or engaging in something like once or twice is enough. And that's just not the case. So for some people, maybe you're, an anomaly. Maybe you got some genius thing going on, and that's great. But for most people, especially when it comes to retaining health, wellness, and knowledge in a long form, and you want that longevity, you 100% are going to need to put in that work on a regular basis.
It's like, you remind me, this is kind of crazy, the way you think in concept and process is like wine, because it's like an acquired taste. Not everybody, it's not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the thing. Like a lot of people think everything is for everybody, but it's like, no, knowledge is key. And like the way you think is so far beyond like the normal status that everybody's thinking. I'm just like, I'm taking mental notes while I'm like, yes.
It's wisdom. Like, and I'm going to tell you something. There's a misconception about wisdom is that the longer time you spend on earth, the more wisdom you acquire. That's not true. That's not true. It's about how many experiences you have. How many experiences do you have? And then do you learn from those experiences? Are you truly actively, consciously absorbing the lesson from every single experience and decision that you ultimately make? That's a lot when you think about it. So for most people, that answer is no. Most people don't want to operate on that level. They would rather have artificial intelligence do the work for them, as opposed to having to sit down and figure it out for themselves. They would rather somebody else tell them who they are and who they should be and how they should think and what they should like and what they should value and how they should approach life and what their opinions should be around certain things. And they don't want to do the work for themselves. They want to rely on the work that's already been done for them. And that's a gross injustice to the development and evolution of humankind.
Yes, because we always, at this point, everything is almost AI nowadays in the way in thinking wise, but it's like, that's not how it goes. We had to think for our own selves in everything. But I noticed too, Dylan, that not only you are an athlete, but you're also an activist, and you're really big into social justice. And how did like all those things transition from you playing ball to becoming an advocate for social justice?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, first, since I forgot to mention this, happy Black History Month.
Hey.
I like low key forget to say that, and not because I'm trying to be insolent about it at all, but just because it's really like ever present. The history is ever present to me, and with each month as we get to decorate, these causes and things like that, it's all fun and dandy and great and whatever, but ultimately, like, what does it really mean? And like, how are we really celebrating? How are we really understanding? How are we separating ourselves, but also applying what's been learned from history to really make a difference out here and to understand like the message behind this celebration and this celebratory time of reflection, of remembrance, of honoring what was laid out before us. you know, being met with like the experience I've been met with, and I'm telling you, like, you have to be a part of a 0.0000001 percentile, maybe even less, to experience some of the things that I've experienced, to have been met with the challenges I've been met with on these global scales. And it's been a blessing, but ultimately a privilege overall, because it's allowed me to be exposed to where all the wrongs are. The things that I experienced in my own life just broke me to my soul, broke me to my core. Everything I experienced with the NCAA, everything I experienced being signed to Universal Music Group and trying to actively balance being a professional athlete and a professional recording artist at the same time, and the WNBA, some of these other professional leagues. Like, there's a lot of growing that still needs to be done. And I don't want to throw any shade here, because that's not my intention, but I've not been compatible with a lot of the ways of the world and a lot of the institutions that have been predetermined for everybody, especially when those predeterminations are restricted to people depending on what demographics you're in. And this is where we start talking about like the uh, institutionalized racism, or like, things like that, prejudice, whatever it is, against different cultures, against different genders, or even age. There's age discrimination, not just for those who are younger. In fact, we quite value the youth almost too much. And that's why the youth gets real cocky, and then they hit a certain age and they lose their shit, because midlife crises are starting to happen at the age of 21, which is freaking crazy, and maybe sometimes even sooner for some children. So, like I said, it's almost a bad thing. And then also we discriminate against people who are past a certain age, which is really crazy, because we've ultimately just chose to stigmatize everyone for every single thing or every single flaw that ultimately they have. And there's so much injustice that development has come from the injustice of a system that has been in place, that is in power, and that has been in power. Ultimately, our system is still a reflection of what, like, the first organized human economics was, which was slavery. And really now the system itself is such a beast that that's where this whole concept of like, well, everybody's ultimately really a slave to the system. Like, where's really the division? Where is the line? Like, a lot of people just want to think that it's the African Americans who have been enslaved to a certain degree. And I will say that, yes, they have experienced a hardship that still has yet to be fully acknowledged. And I think that the community is still just like fighting and waiting for the acknowledgement, or like just shit, someone to just be like, I'm sorry. I'm genuinely sorry. And then making a real change for that remorse. Like, when you don't see a change really happen, and I'm not talking the fluff, I'm not talking the fun little, oh, we talk about it, we hashtag things. I'm talking about real infrastructural change, where we see the positions of power filled by people of color, women, all these different demographics that are represented. Because really, when you don't have representation in these spaces, you're not going to be catered to or cared for or considered in the demographics that you fall in, that the system has essentially enslaved us to. And like I said, there is so much wrong. There are communities that are still third world and blighted within America, within our very own country, on our very own turf. And we just choose to outcast them and to pretty much tell them, like, you're the problem, figure it out, as opposed to understanding how they got there and why, and where that fault also lies on our regimes. And for me, I've seen it affect the people I love outside of just me. When it really started killing the people that I love, like when you see the people you love die to this unjustly, when you watch the bad guys win over and over and over, it just is soul crushing. It just makes you question life, period. Like, what is life? Like, why are we all participating in this circus of hell? And who signed us up for this? It really makes you question, like, is there even a God? Because why would he, like, make us all suffer in this way? Why would he ultimately set us up like this? It's like a cruel joke, really. But ultimately, I found there was purpose in it all. And again, it really just came down to perspective. That's why I'll call myself a perspective doctor, because it came down to the perspective. So I just started seeing things as opportunities. I started forgiving people for their ignorance, because ultimately everybody was just having the torch passed down to them like a baton, and like a robot, just doing what they were told, doing what they were taught, repeating patterns, repeating behaviors, repeating the disrespect or the insolence or whatever. I've always been a baby genius. Like, aside from sports, aside from the arts, aside from even my activism, it was always my intelligence that was off the chart. That was something that I really could never hide, but had to start to learn to hide, because it actually really made me a target in more ways than just my aesthetics and my talent. It made me a target because I was able to see through a lot of the shit. I was inquisitive, and I would deviate from things that I knew were not right or were not just. And when I would deviate from the collective, when I decided to outcast myself, even if it meant I was standing on the rock by myself, that made me a force to be reckoned with. And that threatened the power, that threatened what was happening before me. And it meant that change was coming. And some people didn't want change. Some people are still very comfortable with the shit show because they run it, while the rest of everybody else is still sitting and suffering, and at the expense of the convenience of the people running the shit show. And for me, I was like, F all of this. I will die for these causes. I will die, because we're already dying. We're already getting killed. Like, there's certain things that the math and the science of life tells us are inevitable for us. So if that really is true, and I decide to pour a certain level of belief into that, then what am I really doing with my time? Because ultimately, attention and fame and all this other shit, that's cute. That's real cute. It's actually hilarious to me that, like, people really just try to be social media influencers for their career and shit like that. Don't get me wrong, it's respect, because it's starting to iron out itself to show that, okay, this has a real potential. This is a real reality. There has been success here. But for those who weren't the wave, like me, like, I'm the wave. I created this whole landscape for what's popping and what's cool and what's this and what's that. I created that. So if people aren't really ahead of the wave or weren't a part of the wave and don't really see what's coming next, they don't see the problems, and they don't see the insecurity and instability of really what this space is, and why you have to be skilled at something. Like, you have to be skilled at something outside of just fucking taking pictures of yourself and organizing your little mini marketing schemes to get yourself out there, to draw attention to yourself, to make people like you, and to make people drawn to you and follow you, because you will lose yourself in that. And a lot of people do. They lose themselves in their egos to that shit. And they start forgetting who they are, and they start catering completely to this character that they've created, and that they now have a responsibility to maintain, because of all of the people who are watching them and reinforcing that that's who they want to see. And that's only who they want to see. And it will become a very suffocating experience. And you will ultimately just have another crash and burn in ways that you do not want to have to. Trust me, been there, done that. You do not want to go down that road. And a lot of people might say, oh, that's just your experience. I was one of those people. I was one of those kids that when I was getting recruited and when I was going and I was talking to some of the players ahead of me or other people getting recruited, and they would tell me stuff like, oh, look out for this, or oh, this is bad, or this is shady, or this is happening. I would always just take everything and kind of be like, okay, well, I'm hearing you, but that's just your experience. And that doesn't have to be my experience. As long as I come at it from a different perspective, or, I'm better than you. So, like, I had that kind of mentality where I was like, so I'll probably have a better experience than you. But no matter what, it's like I said at the beginning, you have to learn and educate yourself through every person that's connected to you, and that ultimately God or the divine or your higher self or source calls you to, because there's no such thing as coincidence. And really, if you really are a genius, if you're smart, if you got wisdom because you've learned lessons and you've applied, it means that you didn't just learn it from yourself, you also learned from others. and you were willing to listen and to put truth and faith into whatever it was that was being spoken unto you, so that you could learn a lesson without actually actively having to experience the downfalls of what comes with that lesson in your own particular life. Trust me, there's a whole lot of traps that we can all avoid if we just listen to the people ahead of us who already had to get caught up in the trap, who already went through, who were already in the web. But again, there's like this ego today. There's this ego and there's this entitlement from the culture coming up today. And there's some really talented ones in that top percentile who are very skilled. But as far as what they got going on up here, I have not met anybody that's come up from the generation, that's coming up from the generation behind me, who I've been impressed with intellectually, who I have been impressed with spiritually or developmentally. Like, the most I have been impressed with is their skills at most, like whatever skill sets they may have. And even then, like I said, there's a very small percentage, and most of the pop culture, hypes them up and trends them anyway. It's like people and kids that we see all the time. There are even some kids that I see that the culture doesn't see. Like, I have some incredible young ladies. For those who haven't checked out the UNLV Lady Rebels this year, you guys need to go check out my squad, because they do some damage. Okay, I'm talking, these guys are champions. They're Mountain West champions. Ever since I pulled up to that school, my school has been nothing but a championship caliber team. I can't say it was that way before I got here. But what can I say? It's like I got the sauce. And plus, just the people around me. Like, it was an energy. We all ultimately uplifted each other. We grew. And like I said, there's a precedence. I'm very active in the lives of the people that I mentor. At least I try to be as active as I can. People might argue that that's a subjective statement. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you get a text from me once a month, you hear from me actively. And that's a fact with all that I have going on. But those ladies, they're incredible, and I want to make sure that I highlight them and I pour into them, because they're some of the percentiles of people. Like one of my young ballers, NECA and Desi. You guys definitely got to check them out. They are next level when it just comes to their, not just their game, but their overall development as people and who they want to be, and like knowing themselves. And I'm really excited for them to kind of get off the leash when they get out of their college experience, to continue to explore more of who they are and all that they want to be, outside of just being ballers, outside of just being some badass, beautiful ass ballers. Because even though we're badass, beautiful ass ballers, we're much, much, much more than that. And again, even this next culture, I think, sometimes gets pigeonholed still. So they only take on like one thing, and then they think that's all they're supposed to do. And then they obsess over just being good at that one thing. And yeah, sometimes you have success with it. And then sometimes it breaks your heart in ways you never thought it would break your heart. You completely lose your love and your passion and your desire to stay committed to what it is. And you want to find yourself and discover yourself in new avenues. And you have to give yourself permission to do that. But never forget, like, that which you love. So even with basketball ended up becoming like a philanthropic space for me, because of all the people I got connected with, all the young ladies who I had to mentor. And I started seeing my purpose with life thanks to basketball. I fell in love with the game again, not just because I got to reconnect with what it does for me physically and even mentally and emotionally, but because what it did in the lives of those connected to me and who it connected me to, and the purpose that it gave me, the purpose, the impact that it gave me, the doors that it opened up for me in order to make the impact that I needed to make. Even right here, right now, this game has connected us right here, right now, to do this kind of work that I feel like I just always kind of do. It's become a part of my personality. I don't even know if I fully consider it like activism anymore. Although when it comes to the really powerful, really serious social causes and injustices, I'm definitely right there in the mix, trying to figure out, where do I stand if we have to draw a line in the sand. And I'm always going to stand, uh, I'm always going to stand 2 feet in with whatever side it is that I ultimately jump on, because that's just how it goes. And sometimes, yeah, there are multiple spaces and communities that I support and that I stand behind, and it's hard for other people to wrap their head around well, how can you support this community if you also support this community? But really, when you understand who I am as a person, you know that I'm ultimately about peace, and I'm ultimately about the overall wellness of humankind, and everybody getting to live in that privilege, everybody getting to experience that at some point in their life, and fairness and equality. And what does that look like? And the only way that we can figure out what that looks like is when we sit back and we see where the deficits are. And when we see where things are wrong, where we see there's underrepresentation, where we see there's underdevelopment. And that is a part of the cause of the underrepresentation, because certain people, they don't have the economics, they don't have the opportunities. So they're not going to be able to compete at these next levels with the people who are invested in from that space of privilege on every level. And for me, I'm just like, I'm sick of that shit. I'm ready for a difference to truly be made. People think that, again, because social media and that whole world hypes up that there's been so much more social movement and infrastructural change than there really has been. And there hasn't been quite as much movement as I think that we want to believe there has been, although there has been movement and there has been strides. But I personally think that we still have quite a long way to go before we start seeing what I would consider equality and justice for all.
Hey, you ain't just said nothing but a word.
It's church.
It is so church on that one because I was like, wait, I said it and sing it some way, and you a singer. I'm like, wait, why am I singing? I don't sing. I don't sing. I just interview. I just do poetry. I just do.
Okay.
I just do. I just want to hear other people's story. I don't know why am I singing. I just thought it was just, girl, especially
You know.
you know, I love how you said, first of all, Happy Black History Month. Love that because I'm gonna let y'all know Black History Month is not just a month; it is everyday lifestyle. I'm gonna let y'all know.
Period. That's what I'm saying.
I'm just saying because I know a lot of people like, why is she saying that? She like, I'm like, look now, and it goes back to like, there's so many things we haven't learned when we were young because everything was whitewashed. Yes, I say whitewashed. Everything was
Yeah.
edited stuff. But and then when you got to the college level, you finally learned, oh, this is what happened. Or if you got outside of college and you wanted to learn and be inquisitive, you're like, oh,
Right.
so where was this at? Like, well, this is what happens when you become an adult. Like, and you mentioned like you went through the trials through like you went through a lot because I noticed like I remember, and this was way before the NIL. First of all, you would have made a bunch of boatload of money through the
First
NIL.
of all, I would have shut the economic system down.
Because
Down.
when I tell you, you had like you and your sister had the social media presence on lockdown, like back in.
That's why we're the landscape. Like that, like we are the landscape. We're the blueprint. We were the guinea pig that everybody looked at and went, this is what to do, this is what not to do. And when we made our statement, when we left early, I can't tell you how many letters I had to write. I told you, I've said this before. All the times I lost my eligibility for shit that kids do just frivolously and whatever now, like I would lose my eligibility for wearing a shirt that my friend made and tagging them in the post. Not even getting money, nothing. Like that's also why my career never reflected the success or the skill sets that I really have as a basketball player. Because I was constantly getting fucked with by the authority. Excuse my language, but I
No,
was
you good.
constantly
You good. It's raw, real girl. You
okay.
good.
I was constantly getting fucked with by the authority, by my coaches, by the front office, by compliance, by the NCAA. And honestly, when it came down to it, it was because they were trying to make sure that they controlled the economics. I mean, there was some shit where like I have a lawsuit against them really, and I've been really pending like hitting the green light on it because I already got enough lawsuits on my ass, but because I really want to see like, can we do something together? Can we make something happen together for real? Can we be on the same team finally before I have to really fight you and come for these reparations like I'm fucking Black America? Because I am. And then the fact that, let's just be for real, I'm a huge supporter of the Cavendier twins,
Oh
right?
yeah.
But this is a great comparison when you look at the truth of the matter, which is that the Black woman is the least protected and respected.
Malcolm X
My
said that
sister
too.
and I didn't make a dime in college. In fact, we struggled just like everybody else. The only reason I was able to live the lifestyle I lived because I had certain doors open me because of my privilege, because of what I look like, and because I had a family that came from money. Not because I ever like capitalized in my collegiate experience like the men were under the table all the time. And when it came down to it, they ultimately looked at us as the martyrs, as the pariah, and again, as people to make an example of, because we didn't really have any big dogs or lawyers or this or that fighting for us or having our back like that. It was just us. It was just us in my very, no shade, but ignorant family. Like, they didn't really know a lot of the shit that was like, of like how to fight back. They were the types that were like, just do what you're told. Just like, go get your slap on the wrist. Go be disciplined. They were those types. They were middle class America and like upper class middle America, but that kind of worker where it's like, just do what you're told and stay out of trouble and do this. And I was like, fuck that. Like, no, this is wrong. We should be getting paid. Look at what the guys are doing. Look at this, look at that. And it would have set me up in ways that I would be able to help the culture way beyond what I'm even like currently scaling right now if that opportunity was available to me. But it wasn't. I was the one who ultimately had to bear my cross, and along with my sister, we were the ones who had to bear our cross in order for that opportunity to be opened up and given to the next generation. And there were so many other people and players who sacrificed and suffered in ways even beyond what I did, leading up to the moment that Dakota and I ultimately opened up the floodgates. Because the second that we had racked up all of our damn letters to the NCAA, I'm telling you, like, I still have the letters saved in my like files and shit like that, where I go back and I'm just like, this is crazy. And it'll be like, I'm sorry for singing at a open bar mic night. And I'm sorry that they used my name and told people I was going to be singing there, and that's considered commercial endorsement, endorsement of a commercial establishment. Like, I was losing my eligibility for shit like that all the time.
Dang, you know what's
I
crazy?
couldn't even pursue music as a serious career, but ironically, my teammates who wanted to go work as a waitress or go intern or do other things in the career avenues they wanted to take, they could. Now you see athletes getting to go on tour, getting to do all this stuff. I was literally not allowed to do that. And at the time when I was I sold a few television shows, but the NCAA came in and the front office came in and they pretty much were like, well, we want to be like, they were going to let us break the rules. Ironically enough, that's how I knew it was all bullshit. Because they were going to let us break the rules as long as they were going to get a producer credit and get the final cut of everything and basically get a piece of the pie. And then the producers of the network were like, yeah, we don't know. Fuck you. We're not giving you a producer credit. We're not giving you an executive credit. You're not getting the final say. We are. This is our shit. So shit never ended up coming out. And I'm okay with that because ultimately it just made my story that much more valuable. And I'm about to Netflix this bitch like I'm freaking Harry and Meghan or Hulu or whatever.
Harry and
maybe
Meghan.
YouTube, but it is definitely in development. I'm definitely planning on being very intentional about how this story unfolds and how it gets told, and creating and generating the economics that should have been done a long time ago and that I deserve it. So like I said, the NCAA, when that time comes, we can either be on the same page about shit or, shit might get a little ugly.
Girl, first of all, I love how you emphasize how you like the camera near me. Like, just put the camera, like, just, yes, I love that. And then the quote where you said Black women are the most unprotected, I was like, I literally just said Malcolm X because I was like, that is a Malcolm X quote because I remember hearing that so many times, especially with the 2020 aspect of sports and like where the athletes was protesting for George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and when Breonna Taylor like kind of name wasn't mentioned a lot just as much as George Floyd, and thankfully it got mentioned, but it seemed like it was a little too late because just like you said, it's like And I've heard it so many times where Black women are the most unprotected, and it's just sad.
Yeah,
So
it's like we're not protected. We're not really looked after. We're like commercialized and endorsed if people can find a wow factor about you. If you have a wow factor about you, you might get an endorsement and you might become one of those ones that's like privileged or more protected. But ultimately, the second, it's just like the Kanye situation. Like, ultimately, the second that you like deviate or that you're no longer of value, but it's different because we're talking about women now. You deviate or you're no longer of value to these institutions or these people or these places or spaces, you're pretty much left for dead. Actually, you're left for dead. And I say again, like with the Cavendier twins, like look at just the success that they've had, but let's also just be realistic about like the fact that we're talking about two beautiful, talented, intelligent white women in America who got to essentially come up off of the hype of two
twin.
successful, talented, twin, mixed Black women. And I say mixed Black women because I'm technically not just Black, even though I identify as Black and I am an ambassador always for my community. Like, that's how I identify. But the reality of my existence is that I'm a mixed Black woman because I'm a first generation Black, white, brown combination pot of a whole bunch of cultures. But ultimately, the features that people recognize and associate me with, and the culture that I've ultimately been the most embraced in my life so far, has been the African American culture. And in that culture, I get to have these conversations, and it's sometimes hard. Like, I don't have these conversations with my white family. In fact, we really don't talk like that. In fact, we really don't see eye to eye like that. I love them deeply, and I always will, and I will always hold them down the best of my abilities and be there however I need to be there ultimately. But to this day, they still don't get it. And we're family. And they still don't get it. They still don't understand the difference in the experience of the things that I have to be met with as a ultimately Black woman in America and what that comes with. That's a real thing. And I think that because it's trending again in this month and all that stuff for people to talk about these things, people really want to overlook it, or they just want to be like, everybody has their own experience and everybody deals with something. And like, that's absolutely right. Everybody does. But can you be real about the landscape? Can you be real about the history? Can you be real about the playing field? Can you be real about how it still exists today? And in what insidious, diabolical ways that it has ultimately camouflaged itself into the culture today? Like, art, can you be real about that? Can we talk about that? Some people can. Some people are like, yeah, of course, I get it. Some people got that soul in them to where they really feel it and they see it and they understand and they see something wrong. It's like I always compare humanity to like the animal kingdom. And it's like, if you see something going wrong, like if you're somebody who's of compassion, if you have a soul, you got heart and soul, which if you're a Black person, most of the time, you got some heart and soul in you. And even if you don't, if that doesn't reflect on the color of your skin, even if I say a Black person, if you got that heart and soul in you, if you see something being done wrong to like another community or a living thing, like even again, the animal kingdom, you see something wrong happening, you're going to feel something about it. You're going to want to ultimately do something, or you're going to want someone to do something to make it right and to do better with it. That's why I can appreciate those, like, even for example, I got to meet Kelsey Plum, which it was really a long time coming. And I got to meet Kelsey Plum recently, and she's somebody who I think does a great job of advocating for a community that she's a part of, even though she might not look the part, even though she might not be what people consider like, the Black activists, because she's just simply willing to take on those conversations. She's willing to acknowledge the differences and acknowledge the hardships, and where there is a privilege that she gets to have that other people don't get to have, simply because of the discrepancy of the color of their skin and the background from which you come from. And your background might not be fucking compatible with white America, especially if you're a deviant, especially a deviant in the sense of you're not going to sign up to just be that one thing that they want you to be. Because I do think that that is a characteristic of all cultures, but it just so happens that white America and the Hollywood effect has kind of dominated the culture overall. It's dominated. So when it comes to having to conform to what it is that ultimately white America and this Hollywood culture wants from us, it doesn't fit. The shoe is not the Cinderella story for most people. Like I said, we end up actually suffocating in the experience, whether it be like early on and in the now, or sometime down the road, because you lose yourself. You are like the Blackness or the culture is just bred out of you. Like, you're not allowed to be anything that makes them uncomfortable. You're not allowed to, you're not given the permission to, use your innuendos, or have your mannerisms, or speak in tongues, or be expressive with your cultural rituals without being some kind of freak or outcast that's like undesirable. And that's just the truth.
I felt that so bad. I felt it so bad, like real bad. I felt that because my thing is like I've always been told like, and I know this is live. I've always been told I wasn't like the regular. I know one of my guests like, not like you're not a regular white girl. I'm like I've been told. I mean, because
You got soul.
my thing is too like, and I've always told like some people like, there are certain things like I do read history. I do. There's a reason why like a lot of my friends are Black because
Right.
I grew up like in fourth grade. I was considered an outcast because I was considered outcast and by the white folks because I have autism, and you weren't considered fully white if you had like a, growing up, like I didn't feel considered fully
Certain
white because,
features, or you talk a certain way, or you like use certain slang, or right.
and it was the thing was too like, and that's why I was like a lot of people like, so how much like I'm like, look now. There are certain things I think and feel differently than others, but one thing I'm going to make sure is listen, because when you listen, you're going to learn a lot when you listen. Because a lot of people forget God gave us 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. That means you better hear, see, and then you can talk.
Okay.
Listen, you better be quick to listen and slow to speak and slow to anger. I'm just saying, but
Yeah, that's some stoic knowledge right there.
but some people ain't ready for that conversation though, because
They don't even know what that means.
no. And another thing too, and I completely agree. Here's the thing, like I said, y'all were, when you said it the best, you guys were the blueprint. You were the blueprint because, like, honestly, I think you said, I forgot if you said it or I said it, one of us said it. Honestly, I've always called the NCAA like the pimp system because they like to pimp out, like they treat like the student athletes as like puppets and they're the puppeteers. So like before the NIL got here, they were making money off of all these student athletes' backs and not saying nothing. And then once the NIL came, they're like, "Oh my God, we're gonna lose a piece of our money now." It's like
Hmm.
y'all been
And they're
taking
still
away.
trying to like create new, ways to continue to make more regulations about how student, like, it's still in like its beta phase, because we're still very early in the years of the NIL. We're in the beginning developmental phases of it, like in the first, whatever, 4 years, whatever, 5 years. So it's like we're still in these developmental stages of the NIL. So we're going to see a lot of shifts and changes and regulations and things get pulled back and, going back and forth. And it's my intention to make sure that if when the change comes, that the the students, the kids are still the ones who are in the favorable advantage. I mean, we need the system to operate however we need the system to operate. But at the end of the day, it should not be operating like modern day slavery, and it doesn't have to be. And these motherfuckers need to stop being so greedy, because at the end of the day, they have mountains and mountains and mountains of money that they don't know what to do with. They're just greedy and want to have it and feel uncomfortable and have freaking OCD and ADD about if they don't have it, or if it's not in the safe or whatever. But really, it's like, what are we doing with this? What are we doing with this stuff? We could be making a difference right here, right now. But you guys are just wanting to sit over there so gluttonous on your damn blood mountain and on your damn blood diamonds, while all the rest of us over here have to suffer. Even back then, I was constantly getting in trouble because every interview I would do outside of like my college's permission, because they would never let me do interviews because I would always keep it too real. And when I would say in these interviews, I would say, this is modern day slavery. It was then, it still is now, and I'm hoping that it changes. The NIL came, and it was like the liberation. It was like the Underground Railroad. That's why I got the Peace Train Foundation. Shout out to Harriet Tubman, who laid down the landscape for me to ultimately build out this foundation of mine and to give myself an identity with it, which is to anybody who needs more love, hop on board the peace train, because love is the movement. And this movement is in the direction of fairness, freedom, equality, and justice for all, with the human being at the center of our overall care. We have to care about each other as people. We have to want to take care of each other. We have to want to take care of ourselves. We have to want to we have to do that work. A lot of people, I think, are still in denial about the kind of work that it's going to take, the practical plans that it's going to take. And other people simply don't want to have to get on board because, like I said, they don't want the change. They're very comfortable and content in whatever space that they're currently in, and they don't want to see the change happen. They feel like that ultimately makes them like the ops. It's like I'm on the other side of the fence here because things are working in my favor, and what you're trying to do is going to change that for me. And it's funny because it's like, well, really, this could work out for all of us. But this tells me you must be pretty insecure because you're looking at this as a competition. And it's not a competition. This is simply about livelihood. This is simply about doing ultimately what is right. And in my eyes, what is right is creating, again, a landscape that provides opportunities, that doesn't uh, enslave people to impractical or unfair or unjust policies.
It's just, and those same people, I realize, those same people that don't want change be the same ones that are so complicit to what's happening. And
Yeah.
like, it's just like, y'all just, and also too, like, my thing, I remember you said there was a phrase that you said, and it stuck with me because I was like, I hope, correct me if I'm wrong, that because it was so, basically, you said, stay strong, not silent.
Mm-hmm.
Because you said that, I was like, there has to be, there's like something so deep in that phrase because, like, with everything that is happening, like, can you, like, in a way, break down what that specific phrase means to you?
Yeah. Like, to me, it takes a lot of wisdom and discernment to know when to speak up. Because ultimately, it's like you said, we got two eyes, two ears, and one mouth. So really, you want to do more observing and listening and processing and registering than you do just want to like overshare or speak or whatever. But there are certain times, and I believe that we're in those times, where when something matters enough, you have an obligation, you have a responsibility to speak up about it, especially if you've got that feeling in your gut that never goes away about it. That is your intuition telling you. That is your higher self, higher force, power telling you. You have to do something about this. And sometimes it's not even about just the words you say. Because yes, words are very powerful, but ultimately they don't mean much if they're not backed up by a level of action. There has to be an intention with your words, and there has to be an action that you're willing to take. And I find that most people want to, like jump on a bandwagon or jump behind something, get behind something, and they're so quick to do that without really understanding their intentions. A lot of people are just quick to anger, or just want a reason to fight, or want a reason to be a part of something controversial because they ultimately need to be fucking entertained. And again, they want to feel important. So they need to they need to check their intentions. My intention of stay strong, not silent, really derived from my sexual assault case. And it was an internalization that I had done, like in certain work that I had done, again, on that road behind the scenes of the things that have happened to me that I never wanted anyone to know, because the world is so cruel and so judgmental, and any little thing that they can weaponize against you, they will. But I realized at a certain point, after I started suffering with guilt, and there's no killer like a guilty conscience, and I started feeling an extreme amount of guilt because I kept seeing these repeat offenses happen by the person in particular in my assault case. I kept seeing these repeat, a person in position of power, and just kept getting away with it. Even to this day, still getting away with it. And the fight's not over, but it's still happening with a whole bunch of people on some Cassie shit. So it's like you see the continued violations happen, and you start feeling a sense of guilt when you don't do anything about it. At least if you're a good fucking person, you feel a sense of guilt. You feel like, damn, how is this now? I remember sitting there and thinking to myself, okay, he's going to get caught eventually, because so many people had come forward, and that would give me a sense of hope. And then I just knew it was my turn. It was time to be strong. And I had to ask myself, I had to check myself, I had to look in the mirror and say, why are you staying silent? What are your intentions? And by the time I had internalized so much hurt, and I was so angry, not just for myself, but for everybody. I was so angry from the accumulation of everything, not just that thing that just so happened to be the pinnacle moment of it, but from the accumulation of everything, because ultimately I felt assaulted, I felt violated by everybody, by these institutions and these programs that were supposed to protect me, but violated me and stole my name, my image, my likeness, my everything from me in order to attract more people into their fucking enslavement. Like, to use me as the damn, bait. I was like the Pied Piper. I still am. Wherever I go, I'm like the Pied fucking Piper. I can ring them all in. I'll call them all in. You see Dylan Gonzalez there? Oh, motherfuckers are gonna know it's valid. They're gonna know it's certified. They're gonna want to run into my ass. So they showing up. Happens way too often. So I know it's like, but I felt violated. I felt like I was used, and not just used, but like abused, especially mentally, especially the wounds that people couldn't see, and even physically. And not just from the sexual intimidation, not just from the sexual assault, which is a real thing for women. And a lot of women don't really understand like where to even draw the line for themselves, because we're so fucking liberated today. We're so liberated in this space of being like expressive sexually, especially because that's the agenda that keeps being forced on by the Hollywood effect. And a lot of women are too ignorant to really know, and also too ashamed to want to take any real accountability for their actions in that space in order to figure out how to change it. And I'm not saying to be less expressive, but to be more real with yourself about where you may set yourself up for things that don't feel good to you. And that ultimately leads you to either make decisions or be coerced into things that you end up internalizing and having to deal with later, however it manifests itself in your reality. As you and everything that goes around comes around. So that karma is going to come back and hit you at some point, whether it be with whatever illness it is that you fear you're going to get from that exchange, mentally, physically, death, whatever it is. Like whatever fears derive from what brought you shame or what doesn't feel good to you is exactly what you're going to manifest if you don't do something about it. And you can't heal what you don't reveal. So you have to speak up, even if it's just between you, yourself, and your God. Because then the second that you start releasing it, the second that you start speaking up with yourself and being honest about it, the second you can finally start healing for real. That's where the true strength comes. That's why it's strong, stay strong, not silent. To stay strong means to be vulnerable. To be vulnerable with yourself. Again, about the things that feel good and don't. I find that one of the major problems in our culture today, and has been a problem, that's a theme here, but one of the major problems is our value system, the things that we value and the things that we instill like our faith and our beliefs into. And when you really check it, when you're like, what is it that I value? Most people value very superficial, trivial, fleeting things. Most women, I don't think, uphold the value system that allows them not only to have respect from other people, but simply self-respect. A lot of people don't actually realize that insecurity is an ego problem. A
Mhm.
lot of people just think that to have an ego problem means you're arrogant and you're full of yourself and you're this and you're that. And yeah, sure, but that also stems, that attitude, those characteristics stem from insecurity, from inadequacy complexes and Napoleon complexes and all these different things that we can go into the psychology of it all to really distinguish. But ultimately, insecurity is a problem. And a lot of people don't realize how they feed their insecurities and build their values on those things. And ultimately trying to bury them, act like they don't exist, and go kind of seeking the things that they need to seek in order to cope with it. And again, not realizing what's even really happening until that moment hits where everything just blows up in their face from how they've been internalizing things and avoiding things and allowing their insecurities to get the best of them. And even myself, like, I remember, like, even to this day, I'm still a very expressive woman. I love myself. I love my body. I work as hard as I do so that I can live the life that I live in every space on every level. But there was a level of respect that the rest of the world did not want to give me because of that liberated side of myself, an expressive side of myself. And it was also a very dangerous space because it gave certain people not just an impression of me, but an entitlement to a certain like activity or certain shit with me. An entitlement so much so that they would just take it. They would just take it. They would just steal it. They would force whatever fantasies onto me or cast me in whatever they wanted to cast me in. And as the woman, especially if it's a dynamic between a man and a woman, I always had the underhand because I'm a woman. And at the end of the day, what people need to remember is it's always your word against theirs. Always. Even if you got receipts, even if you got this, even if you got that, with all the artificial intelligence and hacking and this and that, there's always a loophole to something. So how are you going to earn your own self-respect? And for me, what that looked like was taking my power back. And how did I take my power back? By speaking up. It was hard. It was ugly. I got the shame. I got the scarlet letter for sure. But at the end of the day, I wear it like a badge of honor because I know what I've been through. I know who I am. I know what it made me. I don't regret any of that. And I want to continue to build on it. And I want other people who can relate to me to get that same sense of hope that I got from the other people that I saw speaking up about things. And I know the power of my platform. I know the power of just ultimately my existence and my brand and my reputation. And there are some people who don't know it, who don't know me, so they'll try to condemn me. And then there are people who do and who recognize what's good and who recognize the movement. And for me, that's a powerful thing, because when you do that, when you launch that, you see who's on your team and who's not, and that's also very important. You'll see who's really for you, who really believes in you, and who doesn't. And that's very important, because you don't want any of the leeches or any of the people that are going to be around you just stealing your energy, or again coercing you into things or down roads that really aren't meant for you to go down. But it's ultimately to each their own. It's to each their own how they want to take that statement. Stay strong, not silent.
Girl, I'm gonna have to tell girl after this. I'm gonna have to talk to you because I was about to cry. Just
Hey, like sometimes you just got to, girl. You just gotta cry. Like,
I
ain't
can't
nothing
cry.
wrong with that.
I can't cry out loud. I got pictures. I can't cry out loud right now. I
Respect. I
can't.
know you like, I gotta hold it together.
No, because I'm gonna have to tell. I'm gonna have to talk to you after we get off this live because, girl.
Yeah, man. Look, all the time, like I mentor. I really take pride in all my little sisters, my little daughters, or even my grown sisters, like, or my aunties or whoever, who even look at me as a mentor simply because they have respect for me, because of the experiences that I've had and how I've handled them. Because that's where your character is defined, and how you respond to what life throws at you. Because life's gonna throw shit at you left, right, all day, every day, especially if you think you're something, and especially if you know you're meant to be that something and even greater and beyond it. So, how are you going to respond to it to ultimately meet that frequency, to meet that standard, to go to that next level?
Girl.
How do you see yourself at your best, highest self? Like, how does the best version of you handle this? And you just have to be real with yourself about that. And you can look to other people to see how they handle it, to study them like game film, like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Or like, okay, like, I like how they handled that, but I would be a little more aggressive, or I would be a little more timid. Like, whatever is partial to you, you got to stay true to that. But
For sure.
ultimately, you have to be real about how you're going to respond to all the shit life hands to you. And for me, when it comes to all the shit life's handed to me, it's also handed so many blessings to me. And again, a lot of that has come in the form of people and the young ladies that I get to mentor now. Like, I'm so grateful to have the knowledge that I have, to have overcome and survived the battles, even the mental health battles. Like, I was suicidal for a long time. And if it wasn't for God, I would definitely not. I'm not supposed to be here. So again, it's a purpose thing. It's like, I know he wants me to be here. I know he wants me to share these stories. I know he wants me to connect with the people who need to hear it, who might even be on their last leg. Because I always knew life was out of my control. I did not have the ability to control that I came into this life and that this is the cards I was dealt. Nobody does. But one of the things that I felt was always in my control was death. That's just how I felt. I was like, I can't control life, but I can control death, for real, if we're being like logical about it. And from that perspective, it's one of those things where you get tested in your power. You get tested in your power, because when you have true strength and when you're meant for something great, you're going to have that battle. You're going to fight that battle of whether or not you really want to sign up or keep signing up for the shit that life is going to hand you on this journey and through this process. And it can drive you crazy when you don't have the answers, or you feel like you're doing all the right things. And sometimes you just have to completely let your old game plan go, or your old understanding of things go. You have to unlearn a lot. And you can only do that by really studying things that you don't know, because you might know a lot. Even me, I know a lot. But when you're somebody who knows you know a lot, that means you ultimately know that you don't know shit in the grand scheme of things. Like, I know a lot, but I know so much that I know that I don't know anything at all. When it really comes to life and God and again, higher powers and all these different things, like, I don't know nothing. But what I do know, I'm going to continue to apply. I'm going to continue to try to learn more about. I'm going to continue to try to expand my knowledge. And I'm going to do my absolute best to deliver that to other people. I've never been the type that's like the gatekeeping type. I've never been that type.
That
Because
part.
again, it's like I see everybody else doing that. And I've had so many people, even within my own community, in the music industry and basketball and the business spaces, there are so many fucking gatekeepers. It's not even funny because they all feel threatened by who will come in and do something bigger and better and more extravagant with the information that they have than what they're doing. So you got all these gatekeepers out here. And I've just never been that type. I've been the type that's like, if I'm the person that's willing to like ultimately take this risk of putting my neck out on the chopping block, because that's what I'm doing. And only so many people are actually capable of understanding and realizing that. But if I'm willing to put my neck out on the chopping block, then I bet you there's somebody out there who's going to appreciate that from me. And somebody out there who's willing to support me in what I'm doing. And somebody out there who's willing to connect and to share this vision of how we ultimately have to come through and change the damn culture. And with that knowledge and with that knowing and that hope, I can keep doing what I do. And it just takes that, just that hope. And again, instilling that in all of the ladies and people connected to me, because it's that important. It's that important.
That was a whole lot of gems and everything. I'm just like, whole lot of drip, drip, drop gems on that. Um,
Hey, like the drip doctor.
yes, the drip that girl. Like I said, I was like, whew. Like I said, I got to. After we get off the air, we got to talk because
Yeah, we gotta connect.
we got to talk after this live because what girl. I got some tea for you though.
I'm here for it. I've got all the wellness tea. Let's sip.
Yes. So
All that real shit.
real. So I told you this live was gonna be raw and real. So
Hey, look, that's why I'm here. That's why it's the real deal in the building.
because you know what the deal is. Hello.
You know the fucking deal.
So my question is for you is what makes Dylan Bonafide, as in what makes you authentic and stand out from everyone else?
Hmm. I think that what makes me bona fide is there's a few things, but to keep it cute, I think that what makes me bona fide is my heart, my soul, and my purpose in life. I think it is incomparable, and I think it is completely one of a kind. I think even though there are many people on my team, I'm on a mission of my own that I know I will never drop the ball with, no matter who else falls off. I think that what makes me bona fide is my virtues, my values, and really that realness. That realness. Like, it don't get more real than this. For real. Like, you won't meet another motherfucker like this ever. And I'm just built different. I'm a 90s baby. I came from a time and an era that was very special, and a very special window of time. I really feel like it is our time. I feel like I'm the leader of the free world. I've been kind of getting groomed to like be the president one day in a lot of these political spaces I've been pulled into, but I don't really care to be somebody's bitch, and that's kind of what the presidency is from my perspective. So I would rather just be, again, the leader of the free world. I would rather people gravitate towards the things that I do just naturally. And if it's for you, it's for you. If it's not, it's not. I try to be really clear about what I'm about and what I'm not about. I would say what also makes me bona fide is probably my compassion, and that kind of comes with that heart and soul, like the compassion and the passion that I have for other people, that I have for life, and ultimately how seriously I take, again, this my purpose overall in life. But you know the deal. I got so much going on in this damn world that it's just bona fide probably really is the best way to just define it. Because, yeah, I mean, I just feel like with me, I don't know, man. I'm something else. And, like, you really got to, like, be around me, like, day in and day out to even fully, no, I don't even think you'd fully understand even being, it's like, how do I say this? I'm baby God.
Hey.
I'm baby God. I'm still in development, but I am God's child. Therefore, I am baby God. I am limitless. I am timeless. I am everlasting, eternal love. That's why I'm bona fide.
Hey. Ain't nothing but a word.
By the word. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I've really appreciated this whole experience. And shout out
Of
to you, girl. Keep being bona fide. Keep doing your thing. I'm so proud of you and everything that you've accomplished and that you've done. And hey, that we're gonna keep doing and that we're gonna keep building on.
you gonna let the folks know where they can support and follow your journey.
Heck yeah, guys. You can follow me on Instagram at Dylan.Gonzalez or on TikTok, The Real Dylan Gonzalez. Or you can just visit my website where it's all popping and happening, DylanGonzalez.com.
Thank you guys for tuning in. And special thank you for Dylan Gonzalez for sharing your story. Girl, it's been a long time coming because Lord knows I was like, yo, I have to get Dylan on here because I know you are a busy woman.
Yes, indeed. But hey, I'm grateful again for this time. It's been absolutely divine. And really until next time, because I'm sure we're about to get bona fide again soon.
Yes, like I said, I gotta talk to you after this live. So,
Yes,
so
we lock it in for
y'all stay
sure.
tuned. Thank you guys. Bye.
Peace and love.